A week has passed since the Rapid Support Forces captured el-Fasher, the latest brutal milestone in Sudan's civil war. Since then, videos and reports have circulated of RSF atrocities against civilians, including a massacre at a maternity hospital. International Criminal Court prosecutors say they are collecting evidence of mass killings and rapes. Witnesses say RSF fighters chased people as they fled, robbing them, kidnapping some for ransom, and killing many.
The situation is unimaginable. We are getting very disturbing reports of systemic targeting and mass killing of civilians. Most of them are children, girls, and women. We are getting reliable information that hundreds of children, girls, and women have been experiencing sexual violence, rape, harassment, abuse.
Aid agencies say just a few thousand people from el-Fasher have reached the nearest camp for displaced people, 40 miles away in Tawila. They'd been expecting hundreds of thousands.
The reports which we do have confirm that less than 7% of the total population of el-Fasher have succeeded in fleeing el-Fasher. Our team in the ground has been telling us horrible stories of pregnant women who had to deliver on their way to Tawila.
Around 14 million people have been displaced in the 2.5 years the RSF has been battling the Sudanese armed forces, its former ally, for control of Sudan. The United Arab Emirates is accused of backing the paramilitary group, something it's repeatedly denied. Last week, it emerged that the UN has seen evidence of British military equipment found in RSF hands, increasing pressure on the government to review its arms sales to the UAE.
Wherever there is evidence of British arms, we want to see it, we'll look at it, and if necessary, we'll take action, just as we did with the use of British-supplied components in Gaza.
The RSF has its roots in the Janjaweed, an Arab militia widely considered to have waged genocide in Darfur 2 decades ago against black African communities. It now controls most of Darfur, where it's again accused of targeting the non-Arab population with mass killings. Many Darfuris had fled to el-Fasher, seeking refuge. It's feared tens of thousands of them are still trapped there now, at the mercy of a militia that has acted as though it wants them dead. Well, joining me now is Khalid Kher, Director of Confluence Advisory, which calls itself a think and do tank founded in Sudan to work on peace and security, economy and governance. Now, there have been several calls for ceasefire today from Europe, Asia, and the Americans are now saying neither side objects to the idea. Do you have any sense of what this ceasefire plan is?
Well, the Quad originally came up with a statement on the 12th of September, and they said that they want to have a 3-month humanitarian truce followed by a 9-month cessation of hostilities, which will then be followed by political talks. There's no sign yet as to what it will take to really make this ceasefire agreement a thing, given that so much leverage will be required right now, given that it's the beginning of the dry season, which is typically the fighting season, and both sides still see a pathway to military victory.
So just explain where the leverage is on each side, because this is not a place like, this is not like Israel, where Donald Trump can come in and say stop. Who has power over the RSF and the Sudanese armed forces?
So the US does have some power, but really it's the Arab countries in the region that have the greatest leverage. United Arab Emirates has a lot of leverage over the RSF. They're their main backer, both financially, politically, and militarily. And as far as the Sudanese armed forces is concerned, it's countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, all US allies. But these countries themselves need to be really pressured by the United States, particularly the United Arab Emirates, to stop their continued support for these parties.
Why wouldn't they want a ceasefire? Why would they want to carry on the war?
Well, all of these countries, and particularly the United Arab Emirates, really see a way to position themselves in the region vis-a-vis their broader ambitions in the Horn of Africa and Red Sea basin. The United Arab Emirates in particular really wants a foothold on the Red Sea, and it wants to be the regional hegemon, and it sees the Horn of Africa as a really large part of those ambitions. And Sudan becomes really the holy grail for countries like the United Arab Emirates in terms of the ways it straddles the Red Sea, the Sahel, as well as the Horn of Africa. So the UAE really needs to be brought, I think, to heel, and much in the same way that Israel was, for example, as a key US
But they
ally.
deny it. They deny even supplying weapons to the SAF at the moment, don't they?
They do, but they have been perhaps unwittingly indicating why they are actually in Sudan. They keep saying they have, grand ambition to get rid of the Muslim Brotherhood and Muslim Brotherhood influence in the region, which isn't really very convincing, considering they were actually very supportive of the Muslim Brotherhood regime for 30 years. But really, what we've seen is, reporting from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the UN panel of experts itself on Darfur that show very clearly a pattern of distribution of UAE weapons to the RSF in Sudan through local countries in the region like northern Somalia, like Libya, like Chad.
Now, given the RSF are making military gains, and there's talk of them pressing on to the next big city, which is just 50 kilometers away or so, isn't it? Why would they stop now? I mean, is the wind with them?
The wind is, yes, indeed behind their sails, but the RSF also has set up this parallel government in Yala. They want to get some level of international legitimacy, and they know that what has happened in el-Fasher, under direct, command by them, is going to look very, very bad for them, and they're going to be very much unable to set up a legitimate government of any kind if the international community is accusing them of genocide.
Do they care about what looks bad? I mean, given what they're accused of already in history?
So there are signs that they do. For example, one of their main commanders, Abu Lu'lu', who has been shown in many of the videos of the past week to be committing most of the most depraved acts of violence. They have arrested him very much in a show of, we're trying to do the right thing. But they've also got, spokespeople all over the world who've really been trying to push this idea that they could be a legitimate government and entity.
Now, meanwhile, the humanitarian situation is getting more and more desperate by the day,
yes,
with more signs of famine being declared by the IPC. I mean, is there any aid getting in?
No. Regardless of what anyone might say, particularly the RSF, there's been no aid coming in as far as local humanitarian actors are saying, and as far as INGOs are quietly saying. There does need to be a surge into el-Fasher, especially now that things have crystallized one way or the other. But we're not seeing that the United Nations has actually prepared enough aid to come in. This morning I was on a call with people from Tawila who had just left el-Fasher, and all they say is we need the war to stop and we need humanitarian aid to get in. But those calls, unfortunately, are not making it to the halls of New York.